With no captain and Anthony Stolarz getting his first start with the Panthers, the Florida Panthers are now back at 500. We discuss how the Panthers power play has moved a lot better and other players who stepped up against the San Jose Sharks.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Wednesday, October 25th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of today. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News, and you can follow me on X at Monoman12. Follow the show account on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. And so, yes, the Florida Panthers, without Aleksander Barkov, who was a late scratch due to an illness, as announced by the Florida Panthers PR department, had a lot of line shakeups, and Anthony Stolarz getting his first start with the Florida Panthers. But even after the San Jose Sharks scored on the power play, the Panthers scored less than 2 minutes later. And never trailed after that. They score their 2 goals in the middle frame, get an empty net goal at the end by Kevin Stenlund, and Anthony Stolarz goes 27 of 28 on the night for the Florida Panthers to get back to 500 at 3-3-0 on the season. And this was, like we spoke about, this get right game for the Florida Panthers as they welcome back Anthony Duclair to Sunrise, Florida. And it's Wednesday, which means it's a Winans Wednesday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, where Jacob Winans is back, and a little bit of a later time that we are recording on a home game for the Florida Panthers, as the Florida Panthers had a 7:45 start puck drop on Tuesday due to the NHL Frozen Friendly, which we'll be discussing more in segment number 3. But Jacob, welcome to the show, and great to see this Florida Panthers team get a win in, on paper, where you see who they're facing against, and it's beating the teams you're supposed to.
Yeah, these are always a lot more fun to record after a win. But that was definitely a game that the Panthers needed to have. Those are 2 points you can't let go against a team that's really not great on paper. Panthers obviously missing a bunch of key players and starting a backup goalie. So going into the game, it feels beforehand like, oh man, this is a trap game. This is one that you cannot overlook. And San Jose scores first, and you're all of a sudden thinking, oh boy, this is a little bit more interesting than you want it to be. But I think all in all, it's a solid game. It was played almost more like a road game for the Panthers, even though they were at home. It wasn't a whole lot of it was a very responsible game. Not a whole lot of chances taken. Not a whole really protecting the goaltender, keeping Stolarz clean, letting him see the first shot, getting clearing rebounds. It was the kind of game that the Panthers were so good playing in the playoffs, and it doesn't look fancy, it doesn't look flashy, but you capitalize on your power play for the game-winning goal, you bury an empty netter, and you have the 1 5-on-5 goal from Carter Verhaeghe. So it's a solid win, and one where the Panthers had to have 2 points, despite the fact that they had a lot of key guys out of the lineup today. Taking care of business against a team that you cannot afford to let 2 points slip away. So I'm satisfied with the win, even though it didn't look the greatest on the score sheet. It's 2 points, and some key guys stepped up for sure.
Yeah, and you think about guys who were ready to play in this one as well for the Panthers, and what the Florida Panthers were doing as far as controlling play in the zone and getting changes as well. The amount of times that we saw the Florida Panthers having the San Jose Sharks pin in their own zone and then having to get a new group of guys while the Panthers were still getting in on the forecheck and getting it back to the point, cycling the puck around, got to credit the Panthers as far as that. And yes, we know what the situation is as far as talent on paper and all that, but some of the guys who came out here to play for the Panthers, Steven Lorentz was one of them, had a wraparound opportunity really early on, and also every skater had a shot besides two guys on the night. Uvis Belinskis and Evan Rodriguez. Those were the only guys who didn't have a shot on goal tonight. And then Matthew Tkachuk and Carter Verhaeghe. Matthew Tkachuk with 7 shots on goal had an assist for his 6th of the season. So I'm not worried about Tkachuk, honestly, even though he doesn't have a goal because of how he's setting up the plays and all that. And Carter Verhaeghe, even be on the top power play unit, even though he's not on power play 1 a lot, about how fast the puck was moving. And it's crazy, even on that power play goal, which was a 4-on-3, which we could argue about whether we thought that was a hook on Carter Verhaeghe on that as well, which was the Panthers could have had a 1 minute and 11 seconds on 5-on-3. But hey, the Panthers score either way. The puck was moving fast, and the touch pass from Evan Rodriguez to get it to Oliver Ekman-Larsson for Sam Reinhart to get the rebound for his 7th goal of in the last 5 games, who he's now 2nd right now in the Rocket Richard race. I know it's early on, but still that's worth something as far as that. And Nico Mikkola as well is another guy who I thought had an incredible game, getting up into the play in the offensive zone. Had a play where Drew it forced the San Jose Sharks to get offsides and broke up a possible breakaway opportunity, and also sometimes bailing out Dmitry Kulikov at times, who had a few turnovers in his end as well. So I thought Nico Mikkola also had a great game as well. So who are other guys who you thought stood out in this one outside of Mikkola and Lorenz?
Yeah, so I would agree with you. I think Mikkola and Lorenz were the 2 best players for the Panthers tonight. Neither one of them ended up on the score sheet, but I think those were far and away the Panthers' 2 best players. And it's Lorenz hustle, his aggressiveness on the forecheck. It's exactly what the Panthers are looking for. Reminds me a lot of Mason Marchment. And the production is going to come. I wouldn't be shocked to see him elevated up in the lineup, possibly even to a 3rd line role, because Nick Cousins looked great on the 4th line tonight. And with guys healthy, I would not be shocked at all to see Steven Lorenz get a crack on the 3rd line at some point, given that the Panthers have a need in the top 6. And Sam Reinhart right now, you can't really justify moving him back to the 3rd line the way he's playing. So would not surprise me at all the way Steven Lorenz has played. Nico Mikkola had his best game so far as a Panther. Had a little bit of a scare there at the end, taking a Mike Hoffman wrist shot to the visor, but bounced back.
Reinhardt's stick too.
Off of Reinhardt's stick, took a weird deflection, but good to see that he was okay. But some of the guys who really stood out, Matthew Tkachuk, I think, played his best game of the year so far. He hasn't scored a goal yet. He's a little bit snake bitten on the finishes. But with that said, he's still at a point per game because he's racking up so many assists. Had 2 more tonight. I think he looked great tonight. He's starting to find his rhythm a little bit. I think outside of Tkachuk, Evan Rodriguez had a really good game, even without a shot on goal. Does get an assist and was really driving the play. And I would say Anton Lundell had probably his best game of the season so far as well.
Got his first assist tonight too.
Got his first assist, stepped up into the top 6 tonight, onto the top line tonight. Took on a lot of responsibility. I think he had a really solid game. The production will start to come for him. He's played with a bunch of different line mates already, but I think he filled in really nicely for Barkov tonight, and I was pleased with his game. And another guy, 2 guys I think we should point out, Will Lockwood and Matthew Samoskevich. That line was jumping, especially in the first period. I think Lockwood is a great forechecker, but Mackey really had a great chance at a breakaway that he got. He was flying tonight. I'd like to see him get a little bit more power play time going forward if he is going to be with the club, the big club, for any period of time. But he played confident. He looked good and had a breakaway, got dragged down. I still watched that replay from 3 different angles. I have no clue how that's not a penalty. You could argue penalty shot, honestly, but the fact that it wasn't a penalty at all was absurd to me. So Mackey, I feel like, got robbed of a really good chance at his first career goal tonight, but it's going to come because that kid has some serious talent. He's got some wheels too. He's a electric skater.
No doubt. And let's also think about how Stenlund and Lomberg being on the 4th line, having to go up a line as well, and then having and then also having an opportunity on a centering feed from Blomberg to Stenlund right in front. And also Juvis Valensis also had a big block on a centering feed that also caused the rush going the other way and getting it a feed to Stenlund as well on a breakaway opportunity as well. So many great players, so many great performances by the Florida Panthers on the night as well. So on Tuesday, as even though with when the Panthers were down, I never felt like that they were out as far, because we saw the quality chances that they were getting. The power play goal that Stolarz did give up, Paul Maurice also spoke about to the media about how, he didn't necessarily say fluke goals as far as goals given up on the PK, but weird bounces, different situations as far as being down 4-on-3, an empty net goal that was that the Panthers were down 6-on-4 as well. And then Stolarz, he just lost track of the puck on that one, and can't put it solely on the penalty killers. But hey, he goes 27-28 and gets his first win as a Panther, and likes to perform against the San Jose Sharks as well. So, not gonna be too harsh on that one goal by Anthony Stolarz that he did give up as well for the Panthers. And also after that breakaway that Mackie Samoskevich was held, maybe there was a makeup call where maybe Carter Verhaeghe got someone on a high stick a few minutes later and wasn't called on Carter Verhaeghe. So maybe he got away with that one a little bit as that. And the San Jose Sharks, they were firing in the third period, but the Florida Panthers, even after they got that kill, they did not allow a single shot on goal when they were down 6-on-5 after that kill. So big props to the Florida Panthers and how they protect their goalies as well on the night. But we are going to transition over to segment number 2. We were going to discuss more about our 3 stars of the game and when we thought this game was won or lost, but in this case, won on Tuesday night. We're going to discuss that more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. And passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle level up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED lights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Segment number 2 here on this Wednesday, October 25th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Winans Wednesday edition of the show. And Jacob, with this one, man, you could go many ways on when you think this game was won or lost, but I'm going to go one specific moment where I thought this game was won. Is when Mike Hoffman had a one-timer, hits off Barabanov and scrambling, and Anthony Stolarz was able to get a glove on it. But however, even if Thomas Hertl was able to get that puck on the doorstep and score, that goal would not have counted because Barabanov happened to touch the puck with his glove. But I thought that was probably one of the best quality chances, especially at the end, where I thought the game was won for the Florida Panthers. What is your moment in this game where you thought this game was won for the Florida Panthers?
Well, I would put that at probably as my moment as well. I think when Stolarz slammed the door on that kind of killed anything that the Sharks had going. So that would be my moment. But also I would say that the Panthers power play in the third period really gave them the momentum back. And I feel like the Sharks had a hard time from that point on really getting back into the game. They didn't score on it, but that was the best the Panthers power play has looked all season. They had an unbelievable amount of chances. They were all over the place. They were flying. They ran the Sharks all over the ice. Penalty killers were drained. The puck possession was there. And then the two shifts following that were, again, extended zone time. The Sharks had a hard time clearing, and prior to that power play for the Panthers, the Sharks had really been pushing in the Panthers zone, and had gotten close on a couple of occasions. So I think that really sapped the momentum. It swung the pendulum all the way to the Panther side, and it was one of those situations where even though you didn't score a goal, you really kind of put a chokehold on the game. And I thought that was the best the Panthers power play has looked all season, even without the goal. The puck was whipping around, and this is without Barkov. Matthew Tkachuk had a ton of chances. The puck was in the crease the entire time almost. I believe it was Carter Verhaeghe who hit the crossbar. So it was a dominant power play. And the top unit, it was so dominant that the top unit played the entire time because they never left the zone. So I thought that was when the Panthers really took control of the game and never really looked back.
Yeah, not only did Carter Verhaeghe hit the crossbar, but Verhaeghe had a chance to Tkachuk to redirect it, and it was saved blocker by Mackenzie Blackwood. Tkachuk gets it to Sam Reinhart, and he kicks it out with the leg as well on that one as well. But here's also an honorable mention about an opportunity where the San Jose Sharks had it, but they just couldn't connect tape to tape, where Peterson had an opportunity where it was kind of a little bit behind him, and Anthony Stolarz had the net open a little bit late, shifting to his left, but kind of a lucky break for the Florida Panthers as Anthony Stolarz was a little late on that one as well. But hey, but there's also great moments where Anthony Stolarz was seeing do screens and all that and close the 5-hole pretty well on the night as well. So we are very happy for Anthony Stolarz getting his first win as a Panther and really using that big body, his 6'6" frame, to his advantage as well. So 3 stars of the game for the Panthers: Tkachuk, Verhaeghe, and then Anthony Stolarz on the night. But an honorable mention because we are not going to see a lot of the good play on the stat sheet because of his position and the whole stay-at-home defenseman. But the honorable mention has to go to Niko Mikkola, because I don't know if we're going to talk about many games this season where we are going to see him as an honorable mention. So Stolarz, Verhaeghe, and Tkachuk on the night with honorable mention Niko Mikkola. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm gonna just make one slight change to that. I'm gonna go Stolarz. I'm gonna go Tkachuk, and I'm gonna go Reinhart. Sam Reinhart is he's playing unbelievable hockey right now. This is the best I've ever seen him play. He's got more goals than games played right now, which is pretty absurd. It's one of those things where you're loving every second of this, but at the same time you're like, oh my God, every time he scores, his price tag is going up. So I'm happy for him though. It's in a contract year. He's got a lot to prove, and he's playing out of his mind right now. So Stolarz, Tkachuk, and Sam Reinhart. But again, my honorable mention is definitely going to Niko Mikkola because he played out of his mind today. Defensively, he's been an absolute rock to start the season, and I'm so excited to see what he looks like if he ends up paired up with Aaron Ekblad or Brandon Montour at some point this year. It's there's so much potential there, even as a third pair defenseman. If he ends up on the third pair, I think so far he's looked like a very, very capable replacement, and some might even argue an upgrade defensively over what Radko Gudas brought. Not necessarily the same level of physicality, but the stay-at-home defenseman role he's playing to a T right now, and that's huge, and that's very important. That's a key part of the team going hopefully back into another playoff run. So. Those are my guys, but Niko Mikkola definitely deserves a shout out tonight.
No doubt. And also another player who got their first point on the night is Eetu Luostarinen. And that play where Carter Verhaeghe scores far side, Randy Moller I love the way that Randy Moller broke that down as it was a set play. Carter Verhaeghe backhands it around the boards, and Tkachuk knowing where Gus Forsling is on that play where he's getting the pinch and Luostarinen touched it for a second, and then the vision for Tkachuk to get it to Carter Verhaeghe as well, to as Mackenzie Blackwood's leg couldn't extend far enough to stop that shot as well. I just love the breakdown of that, and it just goes to show about knowing where your teammate is. Any thoughts on that play?
I thought that play was great, and we've talked about it time and time again. It's Matthew Tkachuk with a setup from below the goal line. He's unbelievable at it. I think the key part of that one is Verhaeghe doesn't waste any time. The second that puck touches his stick, it's on net. It doesn't have to be the prettiest shot. That definitely wasn't his prettiest snipe, but it sneaks in, and that's really all you have to do sometimes is just get it on the net quickly. But Matthew Tkachuk, I think his playmaking has really taken a step forward. As he struggled to finish his own goals a little bit this year so far, his playmaking has definitely been there. And I think the hockey IQ to make that pass from behind the goal line and set up Verhaeghe on that play, it's world class. And I think that the cycle, the Panthers are really dominant when they're cycling the puck like that. It's hard to keep up with them. On the boards, the puck is always going to move faster than a defender. No one can skate as fast as the puck can move. So if you can move the puck that quickly and whip it around the boards and have that kind of cycle game, we've seen what it can do for the Panthers. And that goal right there was definitely an example of that. And we're going to be talking about this for the next many, many years. The setups from below the goal line for Matthew Tkachuk, it's his bread and butter. And we saw it again tonight in Carter Verhaeghe. His goal scoring touch has not gone anywhere. He's still scoring big goals for the Panthers. So I love that goal. I thought it was great, and it came in a big time too. 2 minutes after you give up the lead, you don't want to dwell on it too much. You got to bounce back quickly, and they definitely did.
Yeah, and the ability to. It's funny because we've seen a lot of times through 6 games of how either the Panthers score and the opposition scores quickly, and then the other way around for the Panthers. We've seen quite a lot of that in just a short time here. So we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where we're going to discuss our thoughts on the Frozen Frenzy, as we are currently keeping up with it right now as we are recording this show as well, and the NHL also rescinding their tape rule as far as everything that's happened as far as before the season, and only 2 weeks in as far as ruling, and we're going to give our thoughts more about that here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. And you shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, theater, and events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, view from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. See the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All-in prices show your total upfront, so you know you're getting a great deal without hidden fees. Buy tickets in seconds with just 2 taps. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, hockey, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. With zone deals, you pick this section and Game Time picks the seat with an average of 18% savings. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Segment number 3 here on this Wednesday, October 25th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. And thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Wednesday, on a Winans Wednesday edition of the show. So, Jacob, Kurt, still watching the Frozen Friendly as we speak. It's I currently have it on my phone to my side and it's on mute. And I had it on mute during the Panthers game because I just can't have two games on audio at once. But what their version of red zone and seeing basically every goal. Last time I checked, it was like 55 goals from 50 players. I know Jeff Skinner was one of them who had multiple goals on the day. Alexander Ovechkin breaks out of his slump after not scoring for the first few games. Hurricanes continue to struggle. Unfortunately, we saw former Panther John Ludwig take the worst out of a hit in the neutral zone in his NHL debut, mind you. Colorado gets 2 goals quickly at the end of the second to come back and win. Adam Fantilli scores from distance. Alex DeBrincat gets his 9th of the season, and then we saw Jared McCann score with the extra skater to tie it 4 and then Jordan Eberle ends up winning it for Detroit. And just now, what just went through my screen, Evander Kane, all the talk about Evander Kane of him needing to step up with Connor McDavid out right now, 1 to 2 weeks it seems, and then him getting into to a fight with not being so happy about his ice time. And I didn't even mention this yesterday. I mentioned NLCS conflict as well with Frozen Frenzy, but I didn't even mention that tonight was NBA opening night as well, which, by the way, go Heat for their home opener tomorrow against the Detroit Pistons. But man, this is so cool. And I want more of this, but I do want it once again later in the season when it doesn't conflict with so many sports.
I agree. I think obviously no one necessarily could have predicted that there would be a Game 7 for the NLCS tonight. That wasn't a guarantee, of course, but with that falling on tonight and the NBA season opener, not ideal scheduling, but definitely it gave fans a lot to choose from, which I think is big. And being able to, the key thing for me here is being able to showcase all the teams, not just a handful. Being able to showcase every team on that kind of stage is huge, because when it comes to a league like the NFL, of course everyone has their favorite team that they watch, but on Sundays, if your team's not on, you're watching somebody, and everyone knows everyone in the NFL.
Yeah.
If there's football on your TV, you're watching it. And it doesn't matter what teams are playing. And we could probably both sit here and say a team back and forth to each other, and we could tell each other who the starting quarterback is. And exactly, we could tell each other who's on those teams or who we have in fantasy. And that's just the way it is. The NFL, the NHL is trying to go somewhere like that. And I think this is a great step in that direction, being able to showcase all of those teams all at once. And at the end of the day, you really got to see some pretty cool stuff across the league. It wasn't exactly a boring night in hockey. It was pretty action packed. I saw some of the Devils and Canadiens game. Tyler Toffoli gets a hat trick. Jack Hughes is up to 14 points in 5 games, just ridiculous. The Ottawa Buffalo game had fireworks. Brady Tkachuk appeared to dislocate. Yep, and Brady Tkachuk dislocated his shoulder in the first period and comes out trading haymakers with Alex Tuck in the third period because he wasn't too happy about it. He did. And, it was a kind of a cheap hit, and Brady Tkachuk immediately gets up, and they were trading bombs, and it's that's say what you want about fighting, but it's hockey, and fans are drawn to that. So the NHL definitely had a pretty action-packed night. There were a lot of goals scored. There were a lot of big hits, a lot of fights. And every team got to showcase what they have with this Frozen Frenzy idea. But like you said, I would love to see it later in the season. I'd love to see it when there's not so much competition on TV. The NHL is always going to compete with the NBA because they run next to each other. They both have 82 game schedules. They're always going to have to share TV time with the NBA, and that's just the way it is. But with that said, ESPN also has NBA rights, so they can, being able to stagger this, having a Frozen Frenzy day on a day where ESPN isn't necessarily broadcasting NBA basketball later in the season when there's nothing else to compete with. I think that would be fantastic. But as far as an idea and getting to test it out for the first time, I definitely think it's huge success. I was a big fan of it, and I please just give me more of this. It's great marketing. I love it.
No doubt. And they also brought in George Paris to see the process of reviewing player safety as well. And also, I forgot to mention that we saw a Connor Bedard goal taken away due to offside as well. And currently what's going on my screen is that PK Subban, Kevin Weeks, and John Buccigross are serving chicken parm on set right now. So pretty cool feature that they're doing there. So bringing a little bit personality to hockey is as well. So such a cool thing that I hope we get more of this. But before we get out of here, hadn't really mentioned this on the show a few weeks ago, but it is an important topic to talk about, and it's when the NHL originally announced that there won't be any tape of any kind of cause, we knew why, and we knew the reasoning was, and all know where it tied back to, and it came to Pride Tape as well, and we didn't know how this was going to backfire if a player decided to do it, but Travis Dermott decided to do this a few days ago. And what if the NHL were to fine him for putting Pride Tape, and also other players around the league were thinking about doing this as well? Who was going to be the first one to try this, and how bad of a look would that be for the NHL to find someone for this? And it just goes to show of the lack of inclusion for that happens in this sport. And the whole hockey is for everyone is honestly, it's just, I roll my eyes when I hear it, not because of the words, but the NHL is the problem with hockey not being for everyone. And these rules about taking away jerseys and also taking away Pride Tape, it's just like the NFL. The end zones say end racism, but the NFL is a problem when it comes to their practices as far as not hiring minority coaches as well. So I just roll my eyes when I see the NHL do this. And remember, they were one of the last ones to acknowledge everything that happened in 2020 when the bubble was going on too. And I'm glad that they rescinded the Pride Tape issue, but the fact that it got there in the first place is just the really annoying part and really aggravating part. And I'm wearing this shirt that you see here on the screen for the listeners. This is as someone who's trying to be an ally for not only minorities but people in the LGBT community. I'm wearing this on purpose for this show in support of the LGBTQ community. But it's just I just don't like how we got here, Jacob, as far as this everything that went on with the NHL ruling as far as Pride Tape. Any thoughts on this, my friend?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on this. We could probably do a whole show about it if we had the time. But I personally don't like how we got here either. And the fact that you mentioned the hockey is for everyone slogan, it's empty to me. It's empty words. And like you said with the NFL, the end racism, those are empty words. And it's a league that's just putting out a phrase to sound inclusive, but actions speak louder than words. And I think that rings true in something like this. I don't want to hear that hockey is for everyone. I want you to show me that hockey is for everyone. And when you ban things like themed jerseys for basic inclusion, it's never been about making anyone uncomfortable or the whole well, I want to watch hockey, I don't want to hear about politics. It's not politics. It's about making sure that everyone can go to a hockey game and feel represented and feel welcome there in that space. And when you take away the jerseys and then go as far as to make a mandate about the color of tape that people can put on their sticks, I mean, I'd like to see the NHL take these kind of steps and be as serious about these sort of things in sexual assault cases. I mean, we've seen more action against Pride Tape and Pride jerseys than we've seen against the Canadian junior hockey team that we still don't know what players were involved in that and if they're on NHL rosters. And these kind of things, that's not a new issue. There are dozens of players who have histories of abuse or various things outside of hockey that were swept under the rug. But we apparently draw the line at Pride Tape, or pride jerseys. And I think it's ridiculous. But if we're going to talk about the negative and the fact that we got here, I also want to bring attention to Travis Dermott, who was very brave and dared to stand against the ban on tape and put it on his stick, and was not shy about it. And I think he really forced the NHL's hand by taking a stand against the ban. He put himself really at the forefront, and just by playing with pride tape on his stick, it's a statement of, okay, punish me. See what happens if you punish me. And the NHL at the end of the day couldn't. They and the ban had to be lifted. And I think that's fantastic for Travis Dermott to be able to take that stand. And I think from that perspective, I don't think the NHL really thought this through at all, because the second the ban came down, you heard your biggest star player, Connor McDavid, say he didn't agree with it, and he hoped that he would be able to have the freedom to put pride tape on his stick again. Like that's the biggest, the best on earth, your biggest marketing tool, the best player you can market as a league, and he didn't agree with your decision. That'd be like the NBA blatantly going against LeBron's wishes publicly without even checking like what side of the fence he's on. Why would you want to stand against your best player in the face of your league and blatantly go against what the majority of the players felt? So I thought, it was always going to end this way. It was always going to end with a ban, with a ban lifted. But the NHL they made themselves look unnecessarily stupid in the process, because you got nothing done, and now you just look the opposite of hockey is for everyone, and you didn't have to. So that's my thoughts on it. And I saw something today from the NBA. It was Adam Silver was speaking with the NBA on TNT panel, and Charles Barkley just straight up asked him a question to his face. What are you doing about the domestic violence problem that's popping up in the NBA? And I think the NHL could really stand to use a little bit more of that kind of journalism.
They don't have a policy.
Like this. Exactly. The NHL needs journalists and former players and people with a platform to kind of I want to say muster up the courage like Charles Barkley did, and don't be afraid to ask the tough questions. For all his faults, and we've talked about him before, the closest thing we have right now is Paul Bissonnette. He's not exactly the example you want to have as your hard-hitting journalist, but he at least showed that with the Mike Babcock situation, that you can get results if you ask the tough questions. And I think if we could have someone do that professionally, not Paul Bissonnette, someone who could do that professionally in this sport and demand some accountability, so it doesn't have to fall on the players blatantly having to break a rule like Travis Dermott did, I think we could really get somewhere. So those are really my thoughts on it. But I'm very proud of Travis Dermott, and I'm happy to see the ban lifted, even though it didn't have to get here.
Yeah, I'm not expecting Biz Nasty to do any of that, especially knowing the other media outlet that he works for, which I will not say that name. But also think about what happened on Saturday. Pink in the rink. There was a jersey design, and that the players didn't even get that opportunity to showcase it. Donations.
Gorgeous. It was gorgeous. An unbelievable jersey. I loved it.
This is what you're taking away, NHL. And that's just one example, but it's just a shame that this league continues to shoot themselves in the foot for sure. But Jacob, I want to thank you so much for coming on once again for another edition of Winans Wednesday, as the Panthers are back at 500. Great performance by Tkachuk, Verhaeghe, Nico Mikkola, Sam Reinhart, Anthony Stolarz, back at 500. And also talking about the Frozen Friendly, and a very important cause as far as inclusion in this game, as having an important conversation. So tell everybody where they can follow you online.
Yep, you can follow me on X at Jacob Winans 8. And before I sign off, just a couple quick things. You mentioned it earlier in the show, but definitely prayers out to John Ludwig in Pittsburgh. That injury did not look good. hoping for the best for him and his family. It's a horrible way to end an NHL debut. So I didn't want to leave the show without saying some words for him. And also Anthony Duclair, welcome back to Sunrise. It was incredible to see the reception he got. Anthony Duclair is an incredible ambassador to the game. Meant a lot to the South Florida community and still does. And if you didn't get a chance to hear Paul Maurice's words about Duclair speaking with the San Jose reporters, highly recommend you go do so if you have a few minutes, because Anthony Duclair is an incredible representation for the game and one of my favorite players in the NHL for sure. So I wanted to welcome him back to South Florida with his game tonight. But that's all I've got. Looking forward to next week.
Thank you so much, my friend, and I will see you next week. And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Jacob Winans, and you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.